feel like your genealogy research is stuck going down a rabbit hole? You're clicking through endless records, but well, never quite finding that ancestor? Well, in this video, I'm sharing with you what your genealogy research really needs and, well, what it doesn't. Hey there, I'm Lisa with Are You My Cousin, and this YouTube channel is designed to help you find your ancestors, grow your family tree, and not get overwhelmed in the process. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, you're in the right place. So what if I told you you do not need to find more records to find your ancestor? Now, I know that sounds a bit crazy, but what I really want to do in this video is to challenge the way that you approach research and maybe try things a little bit different and see if that helps you make a little progress on some of those brick wall ancestors. So oftentimes we get really stuck in that whole rut of finding more records. We find a record for our ancestor, but well, it doesn't answer the question that we really need to find. So we look for that next record and we go for another record, and that one doesn't quite do it either, and we keep searching for a different record, and we spend, weeks and years sometimes looking for more records for our ancestor. Well, when sometimes what we actually find is that, well, maybe we already have the answer in our notes and in the records that we already have. We are just missing that a little bit. And the reason we're missing that is we're on this constant pursuit for more records to find that exact answer within a record, when we really need to sit back and think about what is it we already have? What are the records as a group that we already have? What are they telling us? So we're going to be diving into this concept called active reflection, or what I like to call mull and ponder. And it is critical for understanding the information that we already have about our ancestors and coming up with some conclusions that, well, we might have missed otherwise. Now, here's a note about that phrase, mull and ponder. I did not create this phrase, guys. I didn't come up with it. Actually, I first heard of it from a genealogy researcher, quite well-known speaker, Mark Lowe. Now, Mark is a fabulous genealogy speaker, and this concept of mulling and pondering over what we already have found is probably the best advice that I have ever received in my genealogy research career. So let's talk a little bit more about this mull and ponder concept, or reflecting on what it is we actually already have in our records. When we are researching for our ancestors, we kind of get caught up sometimes in a relentless search for more records. So always feeling like we need that next record. This one didn't have the answer, let's find another one. That one didn't have the answer, let's find another one. And so we spend a lot of time on this pursuit of more records. So what happens is we get so caught up in this pursuit of records that, well, we do not take the time to stop back and think about what it is we're finding and what we already have, and what these new records, how they relate to the previous records that we've already found. And because we're so busy looking for that next record, we actually create some of our own brick walls. We actually hinder our progress when it comes to tracking down that ancestor. So let me ask you a question. Do you sometimes get caught up in finding the next record that you kind of forget to go back and look at what you actually already have? If you do, go ahead and hit that like button and let me know. But aren't more records great? Well, yes, they are. But at some point we need to stop and actually understand what it is we're finding and what it is we actually have. So taking time to mull and ponder what you have found, or to actively reflect what you have found, is crucial for your genealogy research. I know it seems counterintuitive to stop looking for the next record, but it works. And here's why. Because when we are constantly bombarded with new information, our brains really don't have a chance to process everything that we found. It's sort of like when you cram for that history test in high school. You might memorize those facts short term, but in the long term, you don't remember them. Here's a little known fact about me you might not have known before, and that is that, well, I didn't like history growing up. Isn't that crazy? All right, back to the ancestors. When we take a break from actively researching for more records, when we take that break and we take time to mull and ponder, when we take time to reflect on what it is we already have, well, we give our brains a chance to kind of work in the background, kind of work subconsciously as well, to sift through the information that we already have. And this can help us identify patterns in our ancestors' lives. This can help us identify inconsistencies or gaps in our research. So suddenly that seemingly random birth certificate that you found 2 counties over might actually make sense now in relation to the family's migration pattern. So mulling and ponder helps us connect the dots. It helps us see the bigger picture and even generate brand new research questions to ask. All right, so we've been talking about reflecting on what we found, mulling and pondering over the information that we have. What does it actually look like? Okay, from a very practical standpoint, when I sit down and I take that break from researching more records, what is it that I am actually doing? Well, one of the first things that I'm going to do is what is called a journaling technique, or really, you might just want to call it a free writing technique. This isn't a really big time where I'm recording dates and exact names. It's really a space for me to be able to write the ancestor story and include my thoughts on that particular ancestor, any questions I might have, and even I might write out any hunches that I might have about that particular ancestor. It's really a time where you can jot down anything that has kind of caught your eye in the research. It doesn't matter how seemingly unrelated that detail might be. If it caught your eye, write it down. Because you never know when seemingly insignificant details that you might have found in a record might crop back up and be important. I find that the actual act of writing these details down, writing my ancestor story down, really helps to solidify the knowledge in my head. I tend to be a very kinesthetic learner, and so by writing, it helps me to internalize what I already know about that ancestor and be able to let my subconscious kind of give me some ideas about how to move that forward. Now, sometimes we might need a more visual approach when it comes to mulling and pondering on our ancestors, and so I actually will do a technique called mind mapping. Now, mind mapping does allow us to organize information and explore connections between people, places, and events in a very visual manner. And as you brainstorm and reflect, you start to add new branches to your mind map, connecting seemingly, unrelated pieces of information. And again, this visual representation helps us to identify patterns and potential new avenues of research for a particular ancestor. Now, next up is a strategy that I use called the what if strategy. Now, sometimes the key to a breakthrough really lies in asking yourself the question, what if? This is an opportunity to actually challenge your assumptions about an ancestor or about a family line. What if that birth record from a different county really wasn't a coincidence? What if that ancestor who states that she's a widow on the census record wasn't really a widow? How would that change your perspective on your research? By asking yourself what if and challenging those assumptions that you think you know, it can lead you down a path for research that you might never have thought to explore. Now, mulling and pondering over an ancestor really doesn't always have to be done alone. Being able to discuss your genealogy brick walls, your genealogy research with someone else is incredibly helpful. So again, not in the records, but you can talk to someone else. This could be another genealogy research friend, okay? I think we can challenge each other, we can challenge each other's assumptions quite well when we're together, right? But I would also tell you, don't discount discussing it and collaborating with someone who is not interested in genealogy or who maybe has no background in how to do genealogy research, but is an interested family member, because they can challenge your assumptions about an ancestor as well. And you never know, because they might have extra information you didn't know about. My dad serves as that person for me when it comes to collaborating on and discussing my genealogy research when I am struggling and really stuck, because he's an engineer and I need to prove all the details to him. And he challenges my assumptions sometimes on my ancestors when I'm not able to do that. And it's been incredibly helpful and gives me really new insights into my genealogy research. Now, this next strategy that I do when it comes to mulling and pondering and to reflect on my research is actually probably one of my favorite things that I do, and that is to shut down my computer and take a walk or a run. Now, I am a runner, I love to run, and so I'm typically going to take a run, but I realize not everyone does love running, so get out, take a walk. The important thing is, what I really am finding here, it's not the run and it's not the walk, it's the movement that seems to clear away the fog and the cobwebs when I'm really stuck too long at the computer, too long in the records. There are many times when I'm out on a walk, a run, whether I'm just watering the plants in my backyard, where my subconscious has kind of been at work, and all of a sudden I'll start to have an idea that pops up in my head about, I never realized that, Jesse lived so close to Mary, and maybe their families were actually more interconnected than I realized. Maybe that's an angle I need to go back and look at. So I'll start to have these sparks of inspiration that will come, and it seems to oftentimes happen when I'm actually out on that walk or that run. To be honest, I'm always surprised at the number of sparks of inspiration that have happened when I'm outside, when I'm moving, walking, running, or gardening. All right, now at this point, I think I know what you might be thinking. Won't I fall behind? It's all I can do to find time to research. How in the world am I ever going to find time to stop researching and sit back and mull and ponder? Well, here's the thing. Reflecting back on your research, mulling and pondering over what you found is not slacking off on your research. In fact, it's actually working smarter and not harder, because a focused reflection on your research can actually save you time in the long run. By stepping back, actively mulling and pondering over what you already have, then taking a complete break and letting your subconscious have a go at it, you avoid overlooking what you already might have in your records. And it allows you to focus your research efforts on more promising leads. Now, finding time to research your ancestors can be hard, But it doesn't have to be, and I don't want you to let it be an excuse. So I've got a video for you where I talk about and show you how to research your ancestors in just 20 minutes a day. It's on your screen now. Go ahead and watch.